Good afternoon, everyone. Anthony Locke with Torrey Hills Capital, and welcome to the Aztec Minerals webcast for August 27th, 2025. Hope everyone's doing well, and thank you for taking the time to join our virtual lunch. Very excited to present Aztec Minerals. They are a mineral exploration company focused on two emerging discoveries in North America. The Cervantes project is an emerging porphyry gold copper discovery in Sonora, Mexico, and the Tombstone project is an emerging gold silver discovery with high grade CRD, silver lead zinc potential in southern Arizona. Company trades on the OTC under the ticker AZZTF and on the TSX Venture under the ticker AZT. Currently trading with a market cap of only about 23 million US and with assets in world-class mining jurisdictions, solid drill results at Tombstone and Cervantes. So far, we feel there's plenty of upside in the stock from here. With us today to discuss Aztecs Minerals operation and strategy going forward is the company's president and CEO, Simon Dyakowski. Simon, it's great to have you on today for our second call. You got a great group here, and I'm really looking forward to having you bring everybody up to speed and all the great things happening with Aztec Minerals. But before I turn it over to Simon, I think everybody understands the format here. So if you have a question, just type it into the Q&A or chat box, and we'll make sure that it gets answered. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Simon Dyakowski. Simon, the floor is yours.
Hey Anthony, thanks very much. Thanks for the great introduction, and thank you to everybody who's tuning in right now. So Aztec is a junior exploration company, as mentioned. We are focused on two projects that we own. 100% of the Porphyry project in Sonora, Mexico, known as Cervantes, and then we own an 85% joint venture interest in the historic Tombstone Silver District in southeast Arizona. That is where we're currently focused with the drill bit. We are traded on the TSX Venture under the symbol AZT and on the OTCQB under the symbol AZZTF. I will be making some forward-looking statements during this presentation, so you are cautioned to review this statement and discuss any investment decisions with your licensed investment advisor. For a quick overview of our company here, so as mentioned, we're on the exploration side of the mining curve. We have a focus in North America. We're focused on the discovery of large gold and silver primary, but also polymetallic deposits. And we're focused right now in Arizona, which we think is one of the preeminent mining jurisdictions in the world. And this is really a focus of ours in recent months with the new administration in the U.S. being obviously much more friendly towards the development of mining operations. And even further to that point, our project is primarily located on private ground, which our joint venture owns. So we own the surface, the mineral rights combined. So that is a very attractive and relatively lower risk land situation to be involved in, even in the mining friendly USA and Arizona right now. And then our second project in Sonora, Mexico, is just over the border. It's a short drive from Tombstone. And Sonora is known to be one of the more mining friendly jurisdictions in Mexico, particularly when it comes to open pit mining. Our company is led by an experienced management and board. We have some very experienced professionals on the board and on the management team who have a proven track record throughout the industry cycle of not only discovery, but also development and production and successful sale of companies. We are focusing right now, as I mentioned, on Tombstone primarily. We have recently had successful expansionary step-out drilling over the past 4 years. We're focused on the contention zone recently, which is a shallow and broad oxide gold-silver discovery. Our recent drill results, our highlights, have had wide and high-grade intervals of oxide mineralization that are also shallow. On the highlight reel, we have a 32-meter intersection of 6.28 grams per ton gold equivalent. Another hole returned 65.5 meters of 3.4 grams gold equivalent. And we're now starting to test the very high grade silver that the district is famous for. And the second to last hole of our recently completed campaign late last year returned 1.5 meters of over 7,200 grams silver equivalent within a broader intersection of 569 grams silver equivalent over almost 26 meters. So that is a wide and high grade silver and gold zone that is quite shallow. And the blue sky on this property, we think, is really with the potential for CRD or carbonate replacement deposit style silver, lead, zinc, copper, gold mineralization that is comparable potentially to the famous discovery made at another project in Arizona called now called the Taylor deposit, but it's called the Hermosa Silver District, which was discovered and advanced by a junior mining company, much like ours, based in Vancouver. Back in 2015, they advanced the discovery of CRD mineralization there and eventually over 3 years were sold to South 32 Mining out of Perth, Australia for almost $2 billion Canadian. So a big, big return for their shareholders. So we think we have some upside that is potentially similar to that geologic theory at depth. And then our property in Sonora, Mexico is also quite advanced. This is a large, shallow gold discovery that we've made over the past 5 years. Headline intervals of 137 meters of 1.5 grams gold, 165 meters of 1 gram gold. And since we've been involved in this property, we now own 100%. We have successfully drilled and discovered what is looking to be a very significant bulk tonnage gold target with also a unique upside at depth, which is more in the model of a porphyry potential copper gold system. So this is a relatively underexplored property with a 6 kilometer structural trend of multiple geologically similar targets. We've only really had an opportunity to thoroughly drill test one of them. So a lot of upside on this one, and our recent exploration here has been more focused on field work over the past few months as we've been focusing the drills in Tombstone.
Hey Simon, one of the questions is how far along were they before South 32 bought them out?
So they were quite advanced. I mean, they were with a resource and a preliminary economic assessment, and they were continuing to drill that off. And South 32 made an interim investment of about $110 million to help them advance that. But they came in sort of halfway in between. In 2016, I believe they came in for the first funding and fully took them out in 2018. But it had significant drilling going on at the time.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Investor highlights. So, you know, probably uh, old hat, to the investors on the call, but just to sort of tie together, why we're focusing on the discovery strategy. So, major mining companies. They rely on juniors to make discoveries these days. 50, 60 years ago, they did everything, but now they've downloaded this risk to junior explorers. So a lot of the expertise and risk appetite in pursuing discovery resides within companies like Aztec. And when a company like Aztec is successful in making a new discovery and de-risking it, the major mining companies then sometimes pay large premiums to acquire these successful exploration companies, and this can create asymmetric payoff or maximum shareholder value. So that is our strategy. Why North America? So, as mentioned, we really like Arizona. There's really good still or strong discovery potential in Arizona still. There's well-established rule of law, reasonable taxes, and great infrastructure. And, similarly, Sonora, Mexico is a great state within Mexico for mining. It is north, it borders the US. There's a lot of cross-border business, and the governor is quite supportive of open pit mining. Why Aztec? Well, we think we're well positioned to create shareholder value right now, and that's because we have what we believe to be accretive drilling ongoing. We think we have large scale ounce potential across these two projects, and they hold significant leverage to gold and silver prices at this time in the gold and silver cycle. We have drilled discoveries of both of our projects, and we're currently advancing them both. Our valuation we feel is attractive. It's about 30 to 35 million dollars Canadian over the past few weeks, and that hasn't really increased yet. And we think we're lagging a little bit some of our peers, but we think that we have now the news flow and potential catalyst to support a re-rating. So this precious metal cycle is underway. We do believe that M&A activity is soon to pick up. These majors will have to be making deals over the coming quarters, and we are currently drilling. This is really for us. I think the biggest X factor is expanding and drilling more gold and silver oxide discoveries at Tombstone at this moment. A little bit on our team. So this is vitally important in an exploration company to have expertise in place to execute on these plans. So myself, I come from the financial side of the business. I'm a former broker and analyst. David Heil, our VP exploration, is a Denver, Colorado based geologist, has over 40 years of experience in the business, and he's played key roles in the discovery and evaluation of more than 30 million ounces of gold and 25 million tons of copper, with significant experience with Barrick Gold. Mark Rebliati, he is on our board of directors. He's a renowned geologist. He's managed several discoveries for the Hunter Dickinson Group. He's a member of the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. Pat Verras, also a very experienced entrepreneurial geologist who has played a key role in some discoveries and very large M&A transactions. So those are the key players on our team. Capital structure wise, we are cashed up. We raised about $3.6 million at 18 cents a share back in May, and we are now deploying that money into the ground. We have, for such a small market cap, we have, I think, a very sophisticated group of investors led by Alamos Gold, a large gold producer based in Toronto. We've recently added Crescat Capital, a fund out of Denver, Colorado, that has a particular expertise in investing in discovery stage stories. And some other funds have been recent participants in our financings and in the market. So we have about 35% of our shares, closely held within 10 or so phone calls. And then just to draw your attention to our comparables, this is 3 weeks out of date here, but you can see our some of our slightly more advanced comparables. We selected these on geography, commodity mix, and stage of advancement. A lot of these companies, as you can see, have started now to surpass the 100 million Canadian market cap range, and so I think we're relatively undervalued, and hopefully with drill success, we're able to close the gap and continue to ride higher with them as this gold and silver market is really starting to get some traction here late summer 2025, with gold just under 3,400 US per ounce and silver looking very eager to break out through $40.
Hey, Sam, one of the
Yes,
questions, if you don't mind,
no problem.
one of the questions that came in is what brought you to the company from capital markets?
What attracted me to the company was the assets, and I have always seen value in projects that have the potential for open pit heap leach gold mining as a cash flow starter. And when I was introduced to this company, that was quite obvious with both projects. So, um, you know, open pit heap leach mining, where it works is when you have a shallow deposit with good metallurgy that can support it. Why it's attractive is it's generally low capex to get started and then low opex. And, by virtue of that, it has a very strong leverage to the gold price. So both these projects have the makings of potentially those economic profiles. And so I had an opportunity to invest first. So I first invested and brought a group of my investors in, and then there was an opportunity to take control of the management. So that happened about 5 years ago, and so we have been advancing both properties since then, with now over 25,000 meters approximately between both projects. So we're getting to I think some key de-risking milestones that should hopefully make apparent, our initial interest in these projects with a bit more of a widely accepted view on them.
Great, thank you.
So the properties, while they're in different countries, different states, they are on the same map page. So you can see Cervantes and Tombstone are about a 6 to 8 hour drive between each other, and they're in the same Laramide porphyry belt that hosts, dozens of very well-known and profitable mines. Zooming in on Tombstone, we are about an hour drive from Tucson, 45 minutes to an hour, depending on one's propensity for breaking the speed limit on the I-10. But more importantly, we are 60 kilometers, 40 miles from the Taylor deposit, the Hermosa Taylor deposit, and um, we sit within a belt of very well-known copper gold projects. So we hope to be the next of these to really to make some waves and gain some recognition. Zooming in a little bit on the property package that we control. So as I mentioned, it is an 85-15 joint venture. It started off as a 75-25 joint venture, and we have diluted our partners down to the 15% mark. They do have to contribute pro rata to the exploration budgets. And below 10%, they revert to a royalty and don't participate in the joint venture anymore. The black outline here is our patented group of claims. So this is where we own surface and underground mineral rights. And we actually have a small aggregate operation operating right now. So just to answer questions before they come up about how risky is it to propose a mining operation in this part of Arizona, I would argue, it's not very, because we actually have one underway right now. It's small in scale, but it does involve blasting and trucks rolling in every day, and it actually employs several people from the nearby town. So I think that's a very key social license benefit for us to have an active mine site that generates, a little bit of money to help pay some of the bills, but and it also it helps us pre-strip some of the overburden that's active in the southern part of the open pit property here. Now, one might ask as well, where's the open pit on this property? It's really a past producing open pit from the 80s that sits underneath this yellow dashed outline. And preceding this era of mining, which ran for about a decade from 1980 to 1990, there were significant commercial underground operations that ran between 1880 and 1920. And you can see some of the pickaxe and shovel symbols denoting those historic mines. So what we're dealing with here is a historic high-grade silver district where the old timers were mining high-grade silver veins and mantos. And with the commodity price resurgence in the 1970s, a group of investors and geologists and engineers decided to open pit mine on that same trend. And so we are really looking to build off of that legacy of both years of mining with our exploration work right now.
Yeah, one of the questions that came in was, what did the previous mine at Tombstone tell you about its potential?
Well, it tells us that there is deeper potential for polymetallic silver lead zinc mineralization. Number one, there is a wealth of knowledge in the old maps and assay results and interpretations from decades ago. And then the more recent era of mining tells us that open pit heap leach mining did work and might work in the future, given the strong recoveries that they had back, 40 plus years ago when that method of mining was still in its real infancy. So those are two clear takeaways. And then another takeaway is one that we've made, which is through the drill bit, and that is what you can see on this slide is a representation of some of the grade that we've been drilling from the bottom of the pit and extending the mineralization really at depth and to the west and to the south. And so what we're looking at here is a color scale of grade thickness of gold equivalent. So this is a non 43101 metric. So it cannot be construed as a gross metal value, and investors should really not rely on this as anything more than a helpful ranking of our results. But you can see the red results are the strongest, the orange are good, yellow good as well, but that's the range. And it's a simple calculation of gold equivalent over the length of the hole times the width. And all we're really trying to show here is that we are expanding the zone of mineralization in a consistent manner along strike, so that's north-south, and now to the west. Also, I should mention that the old open pit operation had an engineering plan to expand the open pit over 500 meters to the west side area, but due to fluctuations in the silver price in the early 80s, did not come to fruition. And so we see that as a very, very interesting target for us to continue to pursue.
Sorry about that. So we are advancing primarily this open pit target at depth and to the west. And in our drill program that we funded and have just announced and have started, we're also, for the first time in our company's history, started to drill deeper into the not it's not the basement, but you can think of it as a basement, deeper plus 200 meters below the shallow formation into the limestone beds that are believed to run underneath this district. And in those limestone beds, we think there is potential for the aforementioned CRD, carbonate replacement deposit style sulfide mineralization. So these three these three magenta traces are our planned deep core holes that we have underway right now, with the first hole starting a couple of weeks ago. So what we're doing right now is a combination of expanding on the in-pit drilling. So that's approximately 3,000 meters of drilling that's underway currently, and then an additional 2,000-ish meters of deep core drilling from some pre-collars. So these are prepared holes that we drilled with RC drilling and are going to complete them to depth with core drilling. A little confusing there, but it's the best way to tackle these types of targets for deeper drilling in this area. There are some other companies that have really unfortunately struggled to get through what's the shallow layers in this kind of formation, and they've failed to reach their target depth. So we've been, I think, quite careful in figuring out a way to risk reward manage that with drilling both methods on one hole.
And how deep is the current pit?
The pit goes down to about 80 meters in the north south or north side here, and then towards the south, it's maybe 30 to 50 meters deep. But the pre-collar holes, so TC 3, 2, and 1, these have drilled casing down them about 200 meters, and we're completing them with about 5 to 700 meters of core.
Great. Thank you.
So we've had 68, 69 successful RC holes along the strike length of the pit, but what we started to see emerge over the past two campaigns is very strong grade in silver. And previously, we'd been drilling a lot of very strong gold grade with some moderate grades of associated silver. But we know the district is famous for high grade silver because that's really all you could economically mine back in the day, 100 plus years ago. But what was really encouraging to us in 2023 and late last year was hitting this plus 100-ounce silver over 6 feet ish in holes 1 of 23. So we drilled 5 feet, of 3485 grams per ton silver equivalent, most of that being silver. And then almost 440 meters away along strike last year, we hit 7,269 grams per ton silver. It's a bit difficult to read so many numbers. Usually we're talking about single grams when it comes to gold. So forgive me for my botching of that. But needless to say, it's a pretty high number. And so we're now starting to see in our model the potential for more high grade silver. And this is really significant, I think, for the market because silver lags gold typically in these cycles. It's, known to be poor man's gold, and it's got this really well established pattern of when gold breaks out in a major pattern, silver follows. And in 2011, we saw silver hit over $50 an ounce. We're not even at 40 right now, but we have gold at almost double the price of what it was back in 2011. So I think please consider Aztec as a silver story going forward because we have the potential for significant high-grade silver discovery here still, and you can see that demonstrated in our drilling over the past couple of years, particularly that hole 16. Very strong silver grade. So we like the potential, especially as we move further south into the west to see better silver numbers. Um, There's a question about the open pit target earlier, and so I think this slide might explain the open pit a little bit more, the past producer. And so you can see it is only about 80 meters deep at its deepest, and a lot of our drilling is focused on the western benches of this open pit mine, and that's significant from a potential strip ratio perspective. We're not looking at a scenario of removing a lot of overburden to get to this shallow gold silver mineralization. A lot of the mining or the pre-stripping of this material has already been done. So I think that will help in future economic studies. We do know that the contention open pit mine operating in the 80s did operate at much lower precious metal prices, and old reports indicate solid gold recoveries of 75% and 60% of the silver with heap leaching with only minor crushing. And we'll also note that they were also very short leach cycles. So we think there's potential for those numbers to improve with a modern metallurgical study. And the new potential that we're seeing in our model is quite significant. You know, nobody had in the 80s had the access to the information technology or to the full suite of historic schematics and maps that we have now. And we have a very robust geologic model which indicates the trend of this mineralization and where we think there's significant discovery yet to be made.
Simon, can I ask a quick question? I don't know if we missed it, but do you have all the infrastructure in place you need at Tombstone?
We have a lot of the infrastructure in place, and this is a helpful slide to explain that. So, you know, road access everywhere. There are paved roads onto the property. We have 4 water wells that we own. We have power to site. We have solar, we have gensets, and we have a skilled workforce and near us. And we also have some of the old buildings of the old heap leach that would need to be re-engineered, but we are using the old Merrill Crowe building for storage and working in. So yes, from a infrastructure perspective, you are not looking at having to build kilometers of roads or power lines or anything like that, and those can be quite pricey
Hmm.
capex items for other comparable projects. So couldn't really ask for a better setup for infrastructure wise here.
Great, thank you.
These green boxes here, they're basically how we separate our target zones. So we have the contention main pit, which has had a lot of drilling in it, but still yielding discovery. We have the west side area, which has had less drilling. You're going to see more emphasis on that going forward. And then the southern extension is relatively undrilled, and that's where the drill currently is right now. So today we're on hole 13 of our RC program. We are considering expanding it, so keep your eyes out for the next news to announce that if we decide to do it. But we think that we think it's worthy to expand. You know, we do have some um, extra cash left from our last raise, so we think we can squeeze it in. We also, you know, we like what we're seeing, and we're drilling a little bit under budget with the RC rig, so we're hopeful to be able to expand and be able to devote more meterage to the southern extension and the west side area, which both have what we believe to be a higher silver content to them. These next 2 slides are cross sections that run across, excuse me, the strike length of the pit, and these are just to demonstrate the consistency and the shallow nature of the mineralization that we've been drilling. So you can see section O and M line up with the northern part of the pit. So there's a couple hundred meters of separation between them. And you can see that the gold and silver mineralization starts really just below that bench that we were looking at on the orthotopo slide showing the dimensions of the old pit. So it's really shallow and it's quite open, particularly to the west. And then similarly going further down the pit K and N, again, you're continuing to see that shallow nature of the oxide mineralization, which, can be amenable to open pit heap leaching. And we think it is because it was in the past. And on long section, this is a helpful way to explain the current strike length of the drilling to date and to show the consistency of the gold and silver mineralization. You can see the red represents gold and the silver represents silver. And notice a relatively less drilling towards the south, which is being expanded on now. We think it continues further south, and then of course at depth below the water table, we also think that there is upside, and the further down you get, the closer we get to our CRD sulfide targets. This slide is our highlight reel of results to date. And you can see there are, out of our 68 holes, almost all of them have hit meaningful widths, but our top 10 or 11 here are very strong. Wide widths of relatively high grade gold and silver in oxide that start at shallow depths. Now, touching a little bit on our CRD upside, this is exciting. This is basically the trajectory of what happened to Arizona mining back between 2015 and 18. In February, they really got going on drilling the new discovery. And by within about a year, they had a 40 million ton resource. Within a year and a half, they had $110 million invested from a major company, South 32, and then within 3 years, accepted a $1.8 billion all cash takeout from that company. So when you get onto one of these things, it can happen fast. And so we're now at the point where we're drilling our first holes. But why do we think we have a strong CRD target at depth? And there's a good reason for this, other than closology and geologic theory. There's actually one drill hole that went deep underneath the contention open pit, and this was drilled in the late 1980s. Hole T8 returned 7.2 meters of 9.1% lead zinc, zero point 0.6 copper, 32 grams of silver. And it was the only deep drill hole that was produced by Santa Fe Mining that actually went underneath the open pit. So this is a Taylor style grade, and it's never been followed up on. It's relatively shallow compared to Taylor. The Taylor discovery was made at about 1 kilometer below the surface, whereas this intersection was drilled about 600 meters below the surface. And on this map, you can see a vertical projection of where it was made, and that's at the end of this arrow. So they drilled a hole colored on the east side of the pit, went towards the west, and at 600 odd meters down the hole, they hit that 7 meters of semi-massive sulfide. Now, what's really interesting for us is that there was no drilling further south, which is really where the bulk of the high-grade silver system and gold system was, both with the old underground mines and the open pit. But because Santa Fe didn't have access to those claims, they weren't able to drill it. Now, what we've done to supplement that model is we have run some deeper geophysics underneath that portion of the property, and we found that it's 600 meters deep. So this is in line with the deep intersection of Santa Fe. We have two fairly large, what we interpret to be conductive bodies underneath the pit. So we are drill testing this primary one with two holes right now. We're about 300 meters, 400 meters into the first hole. And so we're not yet at the top of the anomaly, but we should be there over the next few weeks. And then we move on to confirm that hole from the 1980s with hole 13, and then likely poke another one into this anomaly as the third hole. And so this represents our first investigation into that upside. And you can see here our cross-section interpretation of what we could be drilling into with these holes. So as it relates to the main anomaly, you can see the top of it here. That pink zone is about 500 meters below the surface. Onwards, that's the low resistivity or conductive body. And then our continuation of hole 13 will confirm the geology and the extent of the sulfide mineralization drilled in the late 80s. So this could be a very interesting finding for us over the next couple of months as we continue to drill off the open pit potential of the property as well.
Quick question. How much of the 5,000 meters have you drilled and when will it be done?
So we have drilled approximately, I think as of this morning, about 2,500 meters of the 3,200 meters of RC, but we're likely going to extend that. We might go to 5,000 meters, and we have drilled approximately 300 meters of the 1,800 meters of core. So we should be drilling through to the end of October at this point, because we really like what we're seeing, and I think there's a good market for it right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in summary on Tombstone, this is an 85-15 joint venture with private interest out of New York and Florida. And it's a well-located property. There was already a question on infrastructure, but it's on primarily on patented or private land. We have a permitted aggregate operation on it, good road access, great infrastructure. It's near a historic mining town with full services, including power and water. It's had significant historic production, 32 million ounces of silver and a quarter million ounces of gold from 1880 to 1940. We have now drilled, prior to this program, just under 10,000 meters of drill programs, over 900 meters of strike, and depth to over 265 meters. And we're now drilling deeper for the first time. So there are a number of catalysts coming together right now, and we expect to have results coming out through September, October, and into November from the ongoing drilling. To date, we've only had one batch of results out. We put out on August 14th, so just 2 weeks ago. Our first 5 holes, the third hole hit a spectacular grade, 6 meters of 456 grams silver equivalent within a broader zone of 50.3 meters of almost 90 grams silver equivalent. So we're starting to get the results coming in. I would expect another update over the next 2 weeks, and then kind of 5 holes at a time into the fall. So that's the introduction to Tombstone. I think that's really what's going to uh, drive our stock and our investment thesis for the next 2 to 3 months. But we do have another advanced property in the portfolio known as Cervantes, and the most notable operation to Cervantes, which is in eastern Sonora, Mexico, is the Mulatos gold mine, which is owned by Alamos Gold. This is a 100% owned project, almost 3,600 hectares, almost 3,700 hectares. Also with good road access, private surface rights on the property. We don't own them, but we have agreements in place with the ranchers that own them. And there's water wells, and we're only about 10 kilometers to power, so nothing insurmountable there. And we've made quite a significant gold discovery there on one of our targets known as the California zone. But we do have multiple targets here, and the whole theme of this property, the whole thesis is multiple porphyry copper gold centers. And to date, we've had success drilling a gold oxide cap to what we think could be a very strong system. But we've drilled 13,000 meters into this program, or into this California zone, and I'll show the highlights in a moment. But more recently, we've been sampling around the discovery area to see where we could further drill and expand this property. And our recent results from that program were very strong indeed. Surface results of over 15 grams gold, 175 grams silver, and 8,000 ppm copper, which is 0.8% copper, which is a strong copper showing. And so these maps represent some of the strength in the copper on this map, and then zooming in a little bit on a high grade gold target that we now have several hundred meters away from our primary California zone target. So all that to say, there's a lot of exploration upside here. We're likely going to come in here after the rainy season, which runs from sort of June until October, with another field program. And then, depending on market conditions, early next year, we might be drilling here again. But the drilling focus of the company is obviously on Tombstone at the moment. But we do really like this project. And I think as the politics of Mexico hopefully stabilize over the coming years, this project is represents a lot of basically a free option on a lot of potential value, we think.
Yeah, you mentioned one of the questions you mentioned Tombstone as a priority, but how can you leverage, the good results at Cervantes? It's is that just obviously the hope if this market continues to hold up is to tackle that next year a little bit more aggressively?
That's correct. Yeah, we do need to see a little bit more, I think, positivity from the market towards Mexico. But a real advantage of this project is just the relatively more attractive cost of drilling. So, for example, our last drill campaign, our all-in number to drill with reverse circulation was just over 200 US per meter. And so our plan, our tentative plan is to continue to generate drill targets, and then we'd actually go in with a pretty cost-efficient drill program, call it Q1 of next year if our shareholders in the market supports it to go in and potentially, greatly expand on what we've already found and put it in position for an initial resource.
Thank you.
So I talk about it like it's an early stage project, but it's not. I mean, it's already had 13,000 meters of drilling nearly into it, and our headline results are here. Also very shallow, mostly in oxides, 137 meters of 1.5 grams gold, 165 meters of 1 gram, 152 at nearly zero point 0.9. So you can see here, hopefully, that it's as well almost or not almost, but it is a very compelling heap leach open pit target. And we have studied the metallurgy on this as well, which has shown compelling recoveries with potential heap leach methodology. So in the oxides, you're seeing gold recoveries of in the mid to high 80s, and even in the mixed groups in the high 70s, and sulfides even over 50%. So these are very strong early numbers for engineering a potential heap leach. So we're excited with that. So in summary on this property, it's large, well located, and now 100% owned. We have multiple targets along a 6 kilometer corridor. We have compelling drill results from 67 holes. We have excellent gold leach recoveries, and it is wide open at depth to continue to expand. And we still think that there is a very strong potential to discover a significant tonnage gold copper porphyry system in here as well. In terms of corporate milestones that we've achieved recently, we have increased our ownership of the Tombstone property to 85%. That was announced just a couple of months ago. We have closed on $3.6 million of financing. We have initiated a 5,000 meter RC and core drilling program, which is now well underway and potentially being increased. And for the first time, we're drill testing our CRD silver lead zinc targets at depth below the contention open pit. And we're following up really on several rounds of successful drilling of the past 4 years. At Cervantes, the most recent drilling wrapped up in 2023, late in 2023. And since then, we've been working on our expansion targets on the ground and are waiting for another favorable weather window to get back into there later this year and further prove these targets before making decisions on further drilling. Why consider Aztec Minerals? I think the attractive valuation here, we have not ran yet like many of the other companies have. We do have the news flow now to support that. The profile of our properties has improved with increased ownership at Tombstone and now 100% ownership at Cervantes. Our team has got great experience in the whole business of mining, from making discoveries, operating mines, and selling companies. Our properties have compelling blue sky upside at each of them at depth and are still growing in their known discoveries of oxide gold silver mineralization near surface. So, really two compelling properties here. One of them a little bit more of the focus right now, but at a very key moment of news flow coming up over the next few months. So, Anthony, with that, I'd be happy to answer any other questions that may have come up during the
Yeah.
presentation.
And thank you, Simon. That's great stuff. A lot of great potential here, and we're looking forward to following the progress. We do have a bunch of questions in queue, and I'm going to get to those in a minute. But I just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A or chat box and scan the questions as they were coming in. Simon, there are a couple of questions about the details of the 15% holder in Tombstone. Um, and can you discuss the details of the 15% holder, which I think you discussed earlier? And does that partner at Tombstone have any intention in your mind of meeting investment milestones?
We initially optioned our 75% interest from another junior mining company that acquired the Tombstone property in 2012 and unfortunately met a very slow time in the junior mining sector through the mid, 2012 to 16 timeframe. And so we struck a deal with them in 2017. It was a great deal for us. Earned our 75% interest, and then that junior company then went and assigned their interest to two of their directors. And so their directors, their former directors now are our partners, and they own their 15% in an LLC, and they have participated at some points, and at other points they haven't. So it's really hard to say. They do have the right to participate and maintain their 15% interest, but they haven't made their last couple of cash calls, which has sort of taken them down from 25 to 15%, and our agreement calls for either participant, if we drop below 10%, then we're deemed to be non-participants and the interest reverts to a royalty. So I can't speak for them, to be perfectly frank, but I can only speak to what the pattern has been over the past year, which has been dilution.
Yeah, do you know what kind of royalty? Did you talk percentages yet, or
It's a 5% net profit interest
okay,
on the property. Yeah.
the net profit then?
Yes.
Gotcha. Do you see yourself building a mine, or is the goal to sell?
Well, in order to sell a company, you have to be building a mine. So we will be de-risking this property. We're in advanced discussions with the environmental agency in Arizona to prepare it for potential permitting, and we will move into the phase of resource estimation, metallurgical study, and start the economic studies for developing a mine over the coming quarters. Um, however, obviously, if a larger company made a compelling bid for the assets, we would obviously consider that as well.
I mean, yeah, the goal is to just keep moving forward as if you were going to build it, and hopefully something comes along before then, for sure. How many rigs do you have going at Tombstone?
We have two right now. Yeah,
Okay,
we have the RC and the core rig concurrently drilling.
great. What are the top two or three, if maybe you want to go back to that screen, or if you want to just explain, what are the top two or three exploration or corporate milestones investors should expect over the next 12 months that could drive value?
It's all about drill results right now, and I'll even just go back to the slide of our target zones just to maybe hammer home where we see this growing. So we're drilling right now in the southern extension. So this is upside to us. This isn't pure infill drilling. We think we see this growing significantly. We like the silver potential to the south, and then the west side area really needs to be drilled because there was a plan to incorporate that into the open pit mine. And so details are sparse. We do have the schematics of the pit being extended that way. We now need to find out what exactly were they planning to mine. So drill results, drill results, drill results. And then beyond that, we'll get into the studies and those will drive de-risking. But in the near term, it's all on drill results for us.
Great, thank you. Let's see here. Any potential for a strategic investor or JV partner to make a sizable investment, in your opinion?
Well, there is potential for a strategic investor. We already have one. We already have Alamos Gold. And so, there are a number of large companies that have shown interest in this property over the past few years. Uh, I don't think we would joint venture it though. We're already in a joint venture that we're moving to sort of wind up if we can. So yeah, we're looking for large investors, not necessarily to sell at the property level though.
And that was the next question. What were the terms of Alamosa's investment
30 cents equity investment into the company. They put in about $3 million 3 years ago.
3 years ago? Yeah. Um, so we got this question last time, but it's how confident are you in scale potential? Can this be a tier one asset? And how many more meters need to be drilled before you have long-term clarity on the potential?
Well, both these properties have the potential to become tier one assets in the case of a CRD discovery at depth at Tombstone, and in the case of a large porphyry copper discovery at Cervantes. And how many more meters will that take? That is a that is a question that I wish I could answer. But let me put it to you this way. We've drilled 10,000 meters at Tombstone, and we have an internal model that's very robust. So I consider that to be relatively little drilling. And similarly with Cervantes, we've drilled 12,000 meters. So, I think within the next couple campaigns, we're going to have a lot more clarity of the starting point for how big these shallow deposits are. And then, you know, drilling the CRD targets will tell us initially, what we can expect to see at depth.
Great, thank you. How will you approach future financing?
Well, we just wrapped up a financing, and so we're not really focused on that at the moment. We had an 18-cent unit financing that was closed in May, and that's what we're spending right now. Uh, we do want to see how the market responds to the news flow coming up, and that will drive decisions on financing, whether they're with strategics or with more conventional, private placement methods. We don't have an answer to that today.
Yeah, and you got a pretty decent runway as it is right now, so um, no need to look at that, which is great. Would you consider selling Cervantes or spin it out if you don't like Mexico right now and maybe putting some additional capital into Tombstone?
No, I don't think selling a Mexican asset when Mexico's unpopular would make a lot of sense for us. It doesn't really cost us much to keep it. And, we know Mexico has a very long and storied mining history, and it will come back. So we're not in any rush to divest any properties right now. We think it's a free call option on things getting better there, and it's a very, very compelling project in its own right.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about that for a quick minute. I'm hearing that Mexico is getting a little bit better compared, this administration compared to the last one. What has you down about Mexico right now?
Well, there is certainly a lot more positive hope, I think, and there seems to be a less you know obvious sort of opposition to mining. Um, where we haven't seen the green light yet is there haven't been any open pit permits issued. Now that's not a huge factor, to be honest, for us as an exploration company. The biggest factor for us in permitting is getting drill permits, but we've had no issue with that because the office that we deal with locally in Sonora has been very, very quick with that turnaround. But I'd say the general sentiment, the headlines, they are not, I got to be honest, they're not like the US. They're not encouraging open pit mining the way President Trump is, right? So that's a fact, right? And until that changes, it remains the same. But there's, I'd say, cautious optimism that things are improving.
Yeah, they didn't they stop open pit mining altogether for a little while and they're revisiting that now.
That is correct. Yeah, they didn't stop open pit mining, but they haven't granted many permits, and there's also some concerns with the granting of concessions. So those are very fundamental risks in the mining industry, is title and mineral rights. So, whenever anything like that's under discussion in any country, capital is mobile and there are, some investors that won't play, and some that are willing to invest the risk. I mean, it's obviously not dead. But when you have, an equally exciting property in Arizona, which is, very, very welcoming of the risk capital, then it's an obvious, it's an easy decision of which one to prioritize.
Yeah, I mean, the current administration here in the U.S. clearly is pro mining, so that's obviously where the priority should be. Last question: were there any other metallurgical studies done by the old mine owners at Tombstone?
Well, there were. We don't have them, unfortunately, but I'm sure they did study the metallurgy before they went and started the operation. Unfortunately, we just don't have them. We're doing the best that we can with the paper records that we've dug up and acquired, but there is no, data room, so to speak, from the Tombstone Development Corporation in the 1980s, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, just seeing if maybe there were some data you could look at, but yeah, I think we're going to leave it there. I want to say thank Simon Dyakowski for coming on and introducing everyone to Aztec Minerals. We look forward to following the progress as you continue to drill at Tombstone. I think if everyone can keep an eye out and see some of the drill results that can be coming through here in the coming months, we think that they're in a really good spot in a really good jurisdiction, and we should see some really positive results here coming up in the future. Before I wrap it up, Simon, any parting guests for our any parting words for our guest today?
Just happy to stay in touch with anybody that's interested. I'll just flip down to my contact information, available on my phone, WhatsApp, text, or email, whatever's convenient. Would love to continue the discussion, with anybody that's interested. And I would like to reiterate that we really haven't moved yet, and we've got the goods. So I think, I would encourage you to have a look at what we're doing and follow along. And
Yeah.
I'd like to thank everybody for signing in today and listening.
Yeah, especially with the news flow that's going to be coming on the drill results. I think that's really what's going to drive the value here. So a lot to be excited about coming up here.